Many questions that come to us are about the Uberization of the industry. When are we going to be Uberized? And there's also a different approach to that. And that's why we're very pleased that we have Vikas, Chhariya of AXA Group and Curtis Scott of Uber to share their ideas on how they work together, which is quite a different way of moving into Uberization. Please. Vikas, brief questions to you. Could you please briefly introduce yourself?
So I'm responsible for digital partnerships and collaborations with leading platforms in the insurance space. This is a team, this is an area that I have built over the last 3 years at AXA. But there is more to it in terms of what we do and how we do it. It is born by AXA's ambition to transform itself. And the pivot is from being pair in customer's life to partner in customer's life. And as part of this pivot, the work we are doing in partnering with platforms and key digital players like Uber is very, very critical here. But perhaps I will speak a bit more about it later.
Perfect, thank you. Curtis.
Yeah, Curtis Scott. I'm the head of global insurance for Uber, and at a lot of companies it'd be just a normal risk manager role, but I've got 3 clients. I've got millions of riders, millions of drivers, and also Uber too. So every day I'm really trying to figure out how can I protect the company, protect drivers, protect riders, and make this really safe and magical experience.
And you know, like you once actually told me, you missed that in your introduction, that you're a great fan of Star Trek. Can you explain about that?
Yeah, the context of Star Wars, Star Trek, was really in terms of thinking about the Force. So people who watch the Star Wars series have heard this phrase, may the Force be with you. And in context of current business, what I think is the Force is with the communities today. There are emerging communities of on-demand workers, communities of people wanting mobility on demand, ride sharing, home sharing. And it is vastly important today that if businesses have to go into the next phase of transformation, you need to address the needs of these communities. So when startups come to me and new ideas come to me, my question is always about, do you have the Force with you? Do you have the communities behind you? And this is really the reference I made to you with regards to Star Wars.
So it's a great metaphor for the state of the industry, the state of the insurtech space, and also how to create ecosystems.
Absolutely. If you think about innovation in this space, I measure innovation essentially in terms of scale. Do you have the scale in terms of customer adoption? And it is very important, therefore, to look at scale that follows the new customer behavior, scale that follows new innovations you're doing. And I think the work that some of the leading platforms like Uber have done is a great testimony to that.
Now, Vikas, you've been extremely successful in creating new kind of ecosystems and new kind of partnerships, such as with Uber, with Alibaba, with BlaBlaCar. Can you share a bit about your vision behind those partnerships? What is the bigger picture?
So thank you for asking that question. When we think about partnerships, I really think about an advice model, not a traditional partnership model. An advice model where I could tell Curtis of the world, Ubers of the world, BlaBlaCars of the world, how do you use AXA as a strategic growth lever? And how do you use AXA to solve the pain points to build bigger communities? And it is important, if I was talking earlier about our shift, our pivot from peer to partner, I cannot be a partner in customers' life if I do not accompany customers in their everyday life moments, solving their everyday life problems. And using the science fiction parable that you mentioned earlier, you yourself, Roger, have different avatars during the day. In the morning, you are asking for an on-demand mobility solution. In the office, you could be looking at solutions on e-commerce platforms. You could be similarly thinking about home sharing. If I have to be a true partner in your life, I need to make sure that I accompany you in all those life moments and empower you those moments to be able to live a better life. And therefore, it becomes very important the role key digital actors or digital platforms are playing in this transformation. And I see this pivot as very, very important for the transformation of AXA as a company to being partner in customers' everyday lives. And this is not without any business impact, because it is very important when I think about this, we have to be able to make an impact in terms of customer adoption. So in the last 24, 30 months that we have seen a customer adoption that has gone from about 1 million, 2 million to about 100 million plus last year. And a customer adoption where AXA solutions are consumed, and these solutions are consumed for the benefit of for the customers. And my vision is that we could perhaps very soon achieve a velocity where we could be serving about 1 billion customers on an annual basis.
But that's on an annual basis, whereas your vision
Yes.
is almost on a daily basis. Where can we add value on a daily basis, which is quite different than the traditional approach of live events?
That is true. And therefore, it becomes paramount to partner with key actors in the digital space to reach to these communities and empower these communities. So my vision, therefore, would be that when Roger leaves home in the morning, takes an Uber, comes to the office, makes everyday purchases, uses a home sharing platform for family vacations, uses a fintech platform for financial savings and other products, I need to be able to put AXA brand in an embedded or otherwise manner to empower you and to empower your everyday life moments. So really, this is a pivot from what most people would think about as an insurance company to a services company to a solutions company. So you would have also seen I've avoided using the word insurance here.
Thank you. Curtis, are you a Star Trek fan as well?
I'm not into really the sci-fi genre, I hate to say it. I'm a little bit more into historical dramas, but I would say favorite movies are more like Last of the Mohicans, The Patriot, which I think is kind of a good segue as to how I ended up in startups, right? I come from the industry, but always kind of wanted to shake it up a little bit, fight for something I believe in, change it a little bit. So it's been it kind of explains why, whether it's been early on in direct distribution of insurance or parametrics or now, ride sharing, why I've kind of gone along this path.
One of the things that is, of course, vital to the sharing economy is thinking about in ecosystems and also thinking beyond the borders of your traditional industry. And looking at Uber, looking at the sharing economy, it also probably involves dealing with so many other stakeholders outside your traditional, for instance, governments. Can you share a bit about your vision about how you look at ecosystems as Uber and you personally? I know that you're very much involved also in all sort of regulatory issues with governments.
Yeah, I think for Uber more so than some of our quote-unquote our competitors, that's extremely true. We have a lot of different verticals. So the technology supports taxis, black cars, ride sharing in some countries, Uber Eats now, jump bikes, scooters. These are all very different businesses, and it really shows that you have a platform. And I think that's a technological advantage. But it's also flexibility that enables you really to partner with regulators. I think what I've learned at my time here is Uber can mean something different, and it should for each city. It should serve that city to do what that city needs, whether it's connecting people with access to transportation or a delightful meal. And that also means working with regulators, I think, to figure out what's right for there. And our business looks very different around the world. Our European business is very different from our US business. And I think that it shows over time that that flexibility, willingness to compromise, and willingness to do what's right for that city.
Looking at your various perspectives on ecosystems, how do you two guys met?
It was a little bit by mistake. I had was coming over to Amsterdam quite a bit of the time. That's where our Europe headquarters is. We'd had a personnel change. I was kind of moonlighting, doing the work over here day to day while also doing my global role. And AXA was a company that we had identified that had a lot of attributes in terms of scale, forward thinking, boots on the ground, localization. So it was definitely on the roadmap to meet them. My colleague at the time was like, we have to be in London Monday. I can get this meeting in Paris Friday, and it was kind of at first like, well, there's worse places to spend a weekend. Let's go take it. But it quickly, within about an hour, was a very engaging meeting. Really saw like-minded individuals, and I think we probably met 50 times since then in a short amount of time.
No, you're right. The meeting was definitely serendipitous in many ways, but the collaboration has grown very well and exceeded the expectations on both sides. I think driven by two main things: Uber's maniacal focus on what comes first for drivers, what comes first for safety, and they have really pushed and raised the bar in terms of innovation there. And on our side, we have moved very, very fast, equally keeping pace. And as a result, in many markets, the collaboration between AXA and Uber has been is a gold standard for the rest of the industry to follow.
Now, this morning I just took a Uber ride to come here, and one of the things that I experienced was that AXA was not visible in my customer experience. Well, we've seen a similar thing happening in banking, like where payments are totally invisible. Also, when I took the Uber ride, the financial service provider was not visible. Are you not a bit scared of insurance becoming invisible, Vikas?
That's a very good question, and I think a lot of my colleagues in the industry are kind of grappling with this fact. The way I see the problem is different. Invisibility does not mean that you're not relevant. The key question here is not whether the brand is invisible, but are you relevant? And the relevance is about solving and obsessing about solving customer needs, customer problems. What is important in this case for independent workers, the drivers and the couriers? What is important for Uber? How can we help Uber grow in certain markets and help them push that platform in ways that the market has not seen? And that obsession is very important for the relevance. And I think the visibility is an outcome of that. So if you look at the experience that we have had with BlaBlaCar, with Uber, it has had a positive impact on those communities. The brand recall, the brand perception has been overall positive, and that somewhere kind of reflects into the fact that AXA continues to be the #1 insurance brand for 10 years in a row. So I would say, I think the question here is not about whether you are invisible or not. The question is about the relevance here, and I would say the visibility of the brand comes if you are able to solve the relevance part here.
I can totally relate to that. But can you explain a bit about what kind of products and services did the two of you came up with to launch the partnership?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we really started talking about, and we've launched a lot of things over the last year, was really how can we, in Europe, change the paradigm, really focus on drivers. How can we make drivers feel that Uber cares, that this is a platform that you want to partner with, that there's this social protection, a safety net, and it was really interesting partnership. I think a lot of insurance companies, you go in the door and it's an exercise of them trying to sell you something off a shelf and then maybe mold it a little bit more to work for what you're doing. And we started very different here. It was very much a first principles approach of what culturally is expected, what is French versus what is British versus what is German, what are these standards, what is the feeling of it. Then we started getting into what does the product need, and then what is the delightful experience. And I think by going that route, we got something really groundbreaking and a first of its kind when we launched Partner Protection. And to do that, we call it Partner Protection, and it basically provides a baseline of social benefits for our drivers across Europe. And to do it, I think at the scale we did was challenging and impressive.
Looking at the scale, can you sort of name figures?
Just think about the localization exercise of launching something same day for all of our operations across Europe with day one, everything in the local language, support center ready to support it, claims ready to take the claims. That's not something we have done before or something that I've seen very often. It's not an easy exercise, but it was something that we felt like very committed to, that we had to make a statement. We had to make it so both our biggest market and our smallest market could share in that and feel that commitment, otherwise it wouldn't be real.
But in terms of scale, I must think about 10,000s, 100,000s of drivers who instantly got that new access to that new product.
It's a lot of drivers, and you can open up the app, and every one of those drivers that's there in about 5 minutes is covered.
And the relevancy is in the fact that all these guys, all these self-employed people, never had those social benefits before, so now they have access to it.
Yeah, the world's changing right now, where we used to live in this binary of you were either an employee or an independent contractor, and the benefit schemes are very much focused around that paradigm. But the world, we now have millions of independent workers, and so this was really just us trying to say, how do we bring these desires for protection and just modernize it and bring it to them, because life events happen. You have a child, you get sick, you break a leg. That's real, that's human, and we have to solve for that.
One of the things that we're currently conducting is a study titled InsurTech for the Good, how InsurTech can help traditional incumbents to increase their social and economic impact. I think this is a good proof point of that, actually moving beyond what you traditionally would think of.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really highlights it well, and I think it also shows, I think, where an insurer can be very valuable. Insurance is a lot like Uber in that it's a very hyper-local business. And I think, we have gotten a lot of insights from AXA as to what is expected in this city, this geography, this zip code. And when you can get to that precision, you can build things that do good, that are relevant, versus things that do good for a lot but don't always solve the problem.
There is also the aspect here, if I may add, around how do you take, for example, in this case, the community of independent workers, and how do you, I would say, lower the barriers for them, for example, independent workers to come into the workforce and leave the workforce. So with the kind of programs AXA and Uber have jointly created, it is easier for a working mom, for example, or somebody looking for a second job, or a student looking to have, coming on the platform, looking to have certain kind of income, supplementary income, and yet have the same benefits that you and I would enjoy. And I think that ethos here has been the cornerstone of building some of these programs, and very, very important here. A classic case of tech for good.
Okay. And already a great adventure. Can you share a bit about what we're going to expect in the coming few years from two of you?
I don't want to give away any secrets, but I would say you should expect to see some more exciting things. I think this partnership is strong. We both do business all around the world. There's a lot of opportunity still.
Yeah, I would say it's a gold standard right now in the industry. I don't intend to let the gold standard come down in any way, so more to come.
More to come, that's good news. Well, then, if we cannot look forward, let's look backward at the exciting journey that the two of you went through. What can you say are the 3 success factors that you would like to share with the audience?
I can give you my 3 pretty quick. I think the first is local is important. So in what I do, local is king, and I think insurers get that. So that experience, that advice feedback loop. Second is centralization. Centralization, though, is still important if you want to move fast. So I think the best thing about this was always a commitment from Vikas' leadership day one to empower his team to serve us globally. So I didn't have 30, 60-day feedback loops. I had 6 a.m. phone calls every day with action happening. And then I think the last is just throwaway tradition. Tradition's important, I think, in a lot of things, but it is the hindrance to innovation. You should learn from history, but you shouldn't let history dictate what you do in the future. You should learn from it.
Because otherwise you'll be the last of the Mohicans.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention.